Hey everyone, Steven with Futurelooks.com. Cooler Master recently sent us a brand spanking new case called the Cosmos 2. This is the successor to the original Cosmos 1000. But somehow between the UPS depot and the studio, it went missing to rekindle a long-lost love. In 2007, Cooler Master introduced a brand new case that really broke the mold of what people think is the definition of a case. Most people think that it's a rectangular box that goes under or on top of your desk. But Cooler Master introduced this case here called the Cosmos 1000, and instantly everyone fell in love with it. I saw this case for the first time at Computex 2007 in Taipei, and immediately I wanted one for myself. But right after the show, as I got used to it, as I started to work with it, I realized that there were a couple things that were kind of wrong with it. For starters, it was really hot inside, and the second thing was that cable management was very difficult to accomplish. In fact, sometimes during the night or during a hot gaming session when the components would expand, the back door would actually pop open because the cables were actually bunched up in the back so hard. But Cooler Master has caught all the criticisms. They've completely taken everything that we've said over the years into account, and they've introduced this, the Cosmos 2. In its day, the Cosmos 1000 was one of the biggest cases on the market, but even that case does not compare to the Cosmos 2. This case is so huge that we've actually had to remove the Cosmos 1000 off this 8-foot table just to make room for it. Now, we're going to go through a couple of the things in the first couple feet of this case that are full of really good stuff that I didn't even think existed on a case like this. For starters, this particular chassis actually has 3 massive fan fittings on the top here. You can hold 3 140mm fans or 3 120mm fans. What that tells water cooling guys is that, hey, guess what? I can put up to a 360mm radiator on the top here. So you can kind of tell that this case has already gotten the cooling issue down by using liquid cooling as one of its tools in the shed. Moving to the front here, there's actually a door up top that reveals something that I thought was really unique. There's actually a touch button fan controller up top. You can kind of see the buttons up here already. You can control the front, the top, and there's also a place for the GPU fan. I'm not sure how that works yet, so we'll find that out in a little while when we do the review. There's hard drive indicators, there's also an LED indicator, and of course your main power button. Now, one thing I do know off the top of my head is that you can change the settings of the fans by simply hitting the button, and it will change color based on whether it's on medium, high, or even low. Right on the below that, you're going to get your front panel ports here. You've got your headphone jack, your mic jack. You've got your eSATA, of course, 2 USB 3, which is standard with most cases on the market today, and of course 4 USB 2.0 ports, which are of course backwards compatible with 1.1. The other really cool thing just in this area of the case is of course this front panel here. Now what's underneath, you say? Well, there's 2 magnetic locks up here that actually keep the door from falling down. But even when you pull it loose and let it fall, isn't that something? It's kind of like when Darth Vader unveiled himself in Star Wars. It's kind of really, I don't know. You make up a word for me. I can't think of one right now. But underneath, you're gonna see 5 drive bays here. You've got 5 5.25-inch drive bays. The top 3, of course, you'll use for your optical drives. And even this is actually really nice. It has a reusable front panel. So just in case you only use 2 or even delete the optical drive altogether, you're gonna be able to put things back in place and make the case look really cool again. The bottom 2 drive bays are actually locking and they're hot swappable. Yes, both of these front bays actually allow you to hot swap your 3.5-inch drives in and out. This is ideal for content creators that need to take their work home or they need to lock it in the safe at the end of the day. But of course, with hard drive prices increasing, who knows, maybe someone is into stealing hard drives at your office and you're going to need to protect them. Personally, I throw them in the safe. The top of the case is pretty cool, but the bottom of this front panel is also very cool. Underneath here, you're going to see a fan filter system. Now this makes a case really easy to clean and keeps the dust bunnies out. But underneath here, There's also a 200mm fan inside the case. How they got a 200mm fan in the front here based on the space here, I don't know. But the other thing that you can do as well is if you choose not to use the 200mm fan, maybe you've got some other ideas in mind, you can put two 120mm fans in place of the 200mm one. You can see the fan fitting holes right here. Very configurable into whatever you want to do. Let me pop this back on for a sec. And let's show you why this case requires the whole 8-foot table. Look at that, folks. One of the complaints that I had about the Cosmos 1000, even though I loved it to death, was the fact that there was no room for cable management. These new doors are bulged open, but they also have a lot of room in the back of them to allow you to manage cables any way that you want. There is so much room in this case that all of the issues that Cooler Master had with users complaining about cable management is completely alleviated in this design. The doors are also removable, like so. And they use a aluminum and plastic construction so that they're really good at dampening vibration. There's even filters on the doors themselves, and the doors also have ventilation through the side to allow additional cooling through the back of the motherboard and also on the other side, as you'll see over there. Now, the unique part about the front door versus the back is the fact that you can actually mount an additional pair of 120mm fans. And of course, it's completely filtered. You can also remove this panel to clean them as well. Pretty cool if you really like quality dust filters. I thought I'd take you to the back of the case and show you some neat things before we head inside the case. First off, up at the top here, you're going to get your water cooling grommets back here. This is pretty standard for most high-end cooling systems. Allows you to install even the most monstrous cooling systems into this case. Directly below it, you've got the option to install a 140mm fan, which is included in the box, or a 120 if you want something a little bit smaller. Directly beside that, you've got your fitting for your back panel plate, which comes with most of your motherboards. But directly below that, and this is kind of cool, most cases I've found, even with XL-ATX support, only come with 9 expansion slots. This one has a full 10. They've dialed it right up to 10 back here. So that means that XL-ATX motherboards, eATX motherboards will all fit, and you'll have access to every single slot on the board. Beside here, you're going to see a throwback from their CM Storm series. It's not a Storm Guard yet, but this is a place where you can put a fan controller in place here. But if you order one of their Storm Guard brackets, you should be able to retrofit this into a Storm Guard fitting, which should protect your mouse and your keyboard from getting ripped off at a LAN party. Finally, this is actually a really cool feature. I'm actually very, very glad that they put this out here. You know how sometimes you have a really large power supply and it kind of sticks in too far inside the case? Well, they've actually extended this bracket outwards so that you can mount even the largest power supply. All you need to do is undo the thumb screws, pop this out, put it on the back of your power supply, then remount it inside. This will give you an additional inch of clearance so that you can still have access to the modular cables inside, plug them in and out as you please. Now that we've gone through the back panel here, let's look at the inside of the case. First off, we've got a tool-free installation system for your 5¼ inch bays. There's 3 of them up here, but if you choose to, you can also insert screws in these holes right here to secure your optical drive or your 5¼ inch devices a little bit better. Below here, obviously, is the 2 hot swap bays. They're actually wired already, so we won't need to touch on that. But below that, there's an additional 5 drive bays. Now, one thing I want to show you here close up is the fact that these are completely tool-free as well too. You just basically take a 3½ inch hard drive and snap it in place. This is pretty standard for Cooler Master these days. One nice touch that I really enjoyed is the fact that they vented out these panels on a lot of the older cases like the half 932 and the half X. This is completely solid with branding, but this is actually a better way to go for ventilation. Let's pop that back in. And also, now that we have this case open here, you can see that the 200mm fan, as we thought, is indeed LED lit. Which color that is, I'm sure that we'll find out in our review coming up. All right. Down at the bottom here is something else that's really cool. Now, we mentioned that there's 5 drive bays, which seems like not a lot for a case of this size. Well, check this out. Underneath, there's an additional 6 drive bays, and the same tool-free mechanism is here, so you can mount SSDs or 3.5-inch drives. Now, if I forgot to mention this, SSDs do require you to mount them underneath here. This will fit a 2.5-inch SSD or hard drive, no problem, all right? This panel actually pops off as well too, and that holds 2 120mm fans for ventilation in this area here, because hard drives stacked this close together can get quite hot. Speaking of hot though, here's a really neat feature that I want to point out. You'll see these 2 brackets right here. Now they're not functional right now, but if you undo a few screws on the bottom, this whole area actually pops straight out. Now what that does for you is that if you're a water cooling fan and you want to mount a water cooling system, you can actually throw a full 240mm radiator plus fans right underneath here. Cooler Master also includes these brackets to make that easy. So basically pop out the 6 drive bays, pop these in place, mount your radiator and your fans, you're good to go for a full 240mm radiator system at the bottom here. Now in this area here, you'll see quite a bit of space, but there is also a few other things I want to point out while we're up here. Near the back of the drive bays in the front here, there's actually another spot for you to mount an additional 120mm cooling fan. So if you need to drag more air into the chassis, you can do that, no problem. As mentioned earlier on, there is a fan controller, and each of these leads that is attached to the fan controller is actually labeled for ease of being able to find them, because there's a lot of cables in here. And of course, everything looks to be fairly high quality, wrapped and shielded where they're supposed to be, all right? There's a full 2 levels of grommeting, so depending on whether you run an eATX or an ATX board, you're going to have cable management for both sizes of motherboards. Down below here, you're going to get another pair of grommets here that lead into the power supply area, which is compartmentalized. So their additional power supply cable management is included. You can also come out the back as well too, and we'll get to that in a second. Let's swing around here to the back a little bit. You're going to see again a internal view of the 10 PCI expansion slots with covers, and this should basically fill all your needs for expansion on any motherboard. So you can run any motherboard and get access to every single expansion slot, no problem. There's another internal view of the 140mm fan, which is included, already mounted. But at the top here, you can actually mount an additional 1, 2, 3 120mm fans or 3 140mm fans. But if you're a water cooling guy, you can already see the potential of being able to mount a massive 360mm radiator or custom sized radiator as you see fit. So again, with the 240 on the bottom, with the ability to mount one on the top, this case really is built for water coolers. But even then, with all the ventilation in here, you can see that it is a very good air cooling solution as well too. And speaking of which, the motherboard cutout for the cooler back here is actually absolutely massive. This is pretty standard these days, and this should allow you to mount pretty much any cooler on the market onto your motherboard, even with the motherboard installed in the case. So that's the main compartment of the system. There is a lot of room, tons of room here, but one thing that really bothered me about the Cosmos 1000 is actually addressed on the back of this case. So we come to the back panel of the Cosmos 2. This is probably the 8th time that I've lifted this case today, so I'm getting a pretty good workout because this thing is heavy. It feels like there's actually a system inside already. At the top here, there's plenty of room for you to route your motherboard cables up and around. There's even a channel back here for you to stick them in. And this channel is actually deep enough so that if you're a lazy cable manager and you don't use zip ties, you could probably build a system without a single zip tie. The channeling in here is at least 2 fingers width. And of course, with the motherboard cut out underneath the power supply here, you can really get a good handle on managing your power supply cables, which are usually the culprit when it comes to cable management because they're so thick. But there's also another benefit to this channel, and that's the fact that even if you have cables sticking out around here, the bulge in the doors will actually accommodate that. So, you know, technically speaking, if you want to do a really fast build, you don't even need to use a single zip tie. And that's usually how I test the case for cable management, because using zip ties is kind of a finishing thing. If you can build a whole system with cable management, everything tucks in and looks great without them, hey, you know what, that's a great design. One detail thing I also wanted to pick out here, and this is with the grommets here, which are fantastic. There's at least 6 of them in various sizes, is the fact that, and I need you to come in here and so I can show you, a lot of the grommets on some cheaper cases or even some premium cases pop out when you tug on them. But I want to show you this part here. There's these little pins that actually stick into the grommet here, and I've yanked it out so I can show them to you. But what this does is that if you're straining to get your cables through, this will actually hold the grommet in place so that it's less likely to pop out in case you've got a difficult cable to manage here. And of course, you've got all of the tabs all over the place to zip tie things down once you've decided that your setup is optimal. So overall, fantastic cable management. Completely addresses one of the things that I hated about the Cosmos, even though I love that case. Some say that the sequel rarely can ever trump the original, especially when you're talking about movies. But in cases, it appears that the sequel is better than the original. And in the last 4 years, it is clear that Cooler Master has taken the Cosmos concept to a completely new level. I would say that the new Cosmos is actually out of this world. And I'm happy to say that I'm in love again. So it looks like I'm in love with a case again. But let's see how long that lasts. Hopefully we won't be fighting in the review. Again, my name is Steven with Futurelooks.com. Thanks so much for supporting our channel in 2011, and we hope that we'll see you again a lot in 2012. Make sure that you subscribe, rate, and comment this video. Take care, everyone.